Okay, so when I say the words Islamic art, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably those beautiful, complex decorations or maybe some grand, majestic mosque. But what if I told you that's not even half the story? Because the truth is, this wasn't just art. It was a flat-out revolution in science, philosophy, and global culture. So let's get into it and uncover the truths that are going to completely change how you see it forever. So this right here sums up the whole story we're going to unravel. On one side, you have the common perception. It's decorative, it's religious, maybe a little traditional, a little static. But the reality, the revolutionary truth, it was scientific, deeply philosophical, and so radically advanced that its influence literally shaped the world in ways we're just now starting to appreciate. Let's close that gap.
All right, so to start, we have to look inside the art itself. Because it's like there's a hidden code, this incredibly sophisticated language of science and ideas embedded in every single line and shape. This is where we find the first shocking truth. Okay, let's just tackle the biggest question right out of the gate. Why no people? You've probably heard the easy answer, right? That there was some kind of religious ban. But the real answer is so much more profound, and it opens up a whole different way of looking at the universe.
See, instead of painting people, these artists were asking a much bigger question. How do you paint an idea? How do you visually represent something like infinity, or the unity of all creation? Their answer was a whole new visual language for the soul, built on these three pillars. You have the arabesque, with its flowing, endless organic lines. You have this mind-bendingly perfect geometry, and of course, the spiritual power of calligraphy. These weren't just replacements for drawing people, they were upgrades.
And this quote just nails it. This wasn't a choice that came from fear or some kind of limitation. It was a massive philosophical leap. The whole point was to try and capture these huge, universal concepts, infinity, unity, the hidden order of the cosmos, instead of just the temporary, fleeting shapes of people. And this is where things get really wild. This is where art becomes hard science. Those geometric patterns? They weren't just pretty designs. They were complex mathematical theorems that you could actually see. We're talking about quasi-fractal geometry, these super intricate patterns that repeat themselves perfectly at smaller and smaller scales, just like you'd see in a snowflake or a fern. This is a concept that's still at the cutting edge of mathematics today.
And here is the truly shocking part. Modern scientists, using computers, analyzed these patterns and discovered that artists were using these incredibly advanced quasi-fractal designs all the way back in the 14th century. That is, 500 years before Western mathematicians officially discovered the concept. Think about that for a second. They weren't just using math in their art. Their art was mathematical discovery. So, we've seen the genius inside the art. But here's the thing. None of this was happening in a bubble. This explosion of science and philosophy sent echoes across the entire world, and it would eventually help shape one of the most famous moments in all of Western history.
You can literally trace the journey of these ideas. It starts in the huge intellectual centers of Islamic Spain, places like Córdoba and Granada. From there, it all travels across the Mediterranean to Sicily. And we're not just talking about art styles, we're talking about a wave of knowledge, advanced architecture, the science of perspective, new technologies that basically washed up on the shores of Italy, landing right in hubs like Florence and Venice.
And let's be really clear here. This was not some minor influence. A growing mountain of historical evidence shows that this transfer of knowledge wasn't just an influence on the Renaissance, it was the spark that ignited the whole thing. It's a massive chapter of our history that's been overlooked for way too long. And the innovation wasn't just visual. The architecture itself was basically a form of high technology. I mean, long before anyone had even dreamed of microphones or amplifiers, the great mosques were being engineered as perfect acoustic machines.
Just try to wrap your head around that. Architects in the 10th century were masters of sound engineering, with zero modern tech. They knew the precise curve a dome needed to control echoes. They figured out how to shape the prayer niche, the mihrab, to act like a natural amplifier, focusing a speaker's voice so it could fill a huge space. These buildings weren't just made to be looked at. They were precision instruments designed to be heard.
Okay, so all of this brings us to a huge final question. If this art was so scientific, so influential, and so incredibly diverse, what do we even call it? Well, the answer really challenges our whole modern idea of what culture and identity even mean. First things first, we have to tear down the biggest misconception of them all. To call this Arab art is just fundamentally wrong. Not because it doesn't have deep and important Arab roots, it absolutely does, but because its scope is just so much bigger. You go to Persia, modern-day Iran, and the art just takes on this whole other life. It's an explosion of vibrant color, these epic stories told in tiny, intricate paintings, and of course, those absolutely majestic turquoise-tiled domes that look like they're touching the sky.
Then you travel west to Ottoman Turkey, and the style completely shifts again. Here the focus is on just sheer monumental scale, mosques that totally dominate the skyline. And then you get up close and see the incredible delicacy of the Islamic floral tiles, with their famous tulips and carnations.
Go even further east to Mughal India, and the style blends with local traditions to create something brand new. The greatest example, obviously, is the Taj Mahal. It's just pure, perfect symmetry, inlaid with precious stones, a sense of total, serene beauty.
And then we go all the way back to Andalusia in southern Spain, where it developed this completely unique Hispano-Moorish style. The Alhambra Palace is the crown jewel here, with its impossibly intricate stucco and tile work that makes solid walls seem like they're dissolving into pure light and pattern.
So you see what's happening, right? This art doesn't belong to a single country or a single ethnicity. It's the shared visual language of a global civilization, one that stretched all the way from Spain to India, built by Persians, Turks, Moors, Indians, and so many others.
And that means the people who created all this, calling them artists, doesn't even begin to cover it. They were polymaths. The person designing a tile pattern was a mathematician. The architect shaping a dome was an acoustic engineer. The calligrapher was a mystic. And all of them were philosophers, using their work to explore the very nature of reality.
Because ultimately, every single element had a purpose that went way beyond just looking pretty. The patterns, the structures, the sounds they created, it was all part of a grand intellectual and spiritual project. A search for cosmic truth, expressed not in equations or books, but in stone, tile, and light.
So when you put all of this together, you realize Islamic art wasn't just some beautiful historical period. It was a true intellectual and engineering revolution, centuries ahead of its time. And for way too long, the full scope of that revolution has been forgotten, almost like it was stolen from our collective memory.
And that leaves us with one final, kind of chilling thought. If a revolution on this scale, one that merged art and science and philosophy, and helped shape the modern world, could be so misunderstood and so overlooked, it just makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other revolutions have been stolen from memory?